Exploring the final frontier from right in your backyard here in the Hazleton area. Once again, we're joined by Scott McAndrews, the president of the Greater Hazleton Area Astronomical Society. My favorite segment on SSPTV News. Scott, don't tell Dave Seaman, who comes in to do sports segments all the time. I love doing this with you. I emailed you recently, and since Scott is very smart, because I didn't even tell him what terms we were going to do, I said, let's talk about some astronomy terms so people could sound smart with their friends. Or when you first start off, it could be overwhelming in and of itself, and then all of a sudden all these terms start getting thrown at you. So we'll try to make it a little easier on you today. And you can go outside and just see stars, but when you start using your telescope, you'll start to see bunches of stars and clusters. So let's start with that. So there's an open cluster and a globular cluster.
There's other clusters.
And other clusters as well?
But open and the globular clusters are pretty much the norm. Open clusters, you're talking about stars that are not very close together, but they're in the same area. Globular clusters, when you look at it like M13 and Hercules, all the stars are very, very close together. So open clusters, you don't think as a good thing to look at, but they're still kind of cool to look at. The globular clusters, they're neater. I'd rather look at a globular cluster than an open cluster.
I'm team open cluster, and let me tell you, I just, sometimes with my wider lenses and that, it blows my mind when you just see so many in a spot, but the globular cluster is very, very cool as well. Conjunction, this one, I have to look this up every time. I think I know what I'm talking about with astronomy, but every time I'm Googling this term, what does it mean? I always hear planets are in conjunction.
Correct. When they're in conjunction, they're very, very close together. Sometimes you'll see 3 or 4 planets in a row. A couple of years ago, I think in the early 70s, I think there was one where there was like 5 planets all in a row. But that's what they talk about a conjunction, when you can see 3 or 4 planets in a particular row, whether it's in the east or west, or most of the time it's always either in the east or the west when you check out those conjunctions.
And you always talk about enjoying the planets, right in our own solar system, in our own cosmic backyard. I'll tell you what, I wake up early. I think it was Mars and Venus, and it is one of the most exciting things. It's 5 a.m. and I'm running around the house. It's so cool when you see that. Okay, and then we have these 3, which again, people could confuse, or I definitely do sometimes: Comet, Asteroid, and Meteor. Let's start with the Comet.
All right, the comets are things that will have a orbit around the sun. So, you talk about Halley's Comet, some other comets that come around, periodic comets. You're always going to see a comet in the sky if you know where to look. There's going to be something out there. I know you had asteroid down there as well. Asteroids are just things that are circling around the sun and not particular any orbit. They've got the asteroid belt. You'd hardly ever see anything like that unless you're in space.
And then finally a meteor, and that's what we see coming like into the atmosphere, right? When people say shooting star or something, it's a meteor.
Well, they come from comets.
Comets, okay.
Yeah, so when a comet comes by and it gets close to the sun, it'll start to burn off and melt the ice particles, and these pieces come off. So that's what happens when you see like the Geminids. You'll see the meteor showers. That's what that's all about. Those are pieces of comet that have fallen off as the comet circled the sun and started to melt and then went back into space and starts getting cold again.
Meteor showers are very cool. And you can just Google, hey, what meteor shower is coming up? They'll tell you kind of where to look in the sky. And it's funny, I went out one night with a chair, sat in my backyard with a beer, fell asleep. 2 hours later, still saw nothing. But a few nights, and then nights after that, I saw this beautiful green meteor just go through the sky. Samuel Sant Jr. saw it too. And it's funny, we just talked about it. It was so bright in the valley. Let's close this segment up. I want to talk about this term, earthshine, because this is my show and tell part. I just so happened to shoot the moon. I thought, how cool, I could see the whole moon and it's only a crescent. But that's because of earthshine, which from my understanding, Scott, it's when the sunlight goes off of the earth and then bounces in and hits the darker part of the moon.
That is correct. So you win that one.
Okay, so I got something right here at the end. So I could go and feel good about myself, and I'll say, hey, let's do another segment. We'll bring Scott back for more talk about astronomy.